Hello friends, it's Kristie Marcotte. Today I'm sharing the cards I made using Love From Lizi's March 2022 card kit. The theme is From the Heart. As I'm recording this voiceover, the kit and most of the add-ons are still available, and I will have links provided in the description box below. This is a monthly kit, so quantities are always limited. The only way to guarantee receiving a kit is to sign up and subscribe. Let's go ahead and get started with card number 1. There are so many beautiful pattern papers in this kit, and I love this pink floral design. I didn't want to cut it up, so I'm using the full A2 size panel. This is 4¼ inches by 5½ inches. I'm adding a scallop border, and this is from Jaded Blossom. It has that inside scallop and then a nice stitch detail all along the outside. I'm putting some double-sided tape on the back side. This is 1/8 inch. Just remove the release paper and adhere it to the card. And it doesn't go all the way to the very edge, so I like how you can still see some of that pattern paper along the outside. Next, I'll add a couple of the butterfly die cuts. So I've already assembled one. I cut both of them out from some pink pearlescent cardstock and also from some silver holographic cardstock. I put double-sided tape on the back side. Now I'm inlaying all of the pink pearlescent cardstock pieces into this silver holographic butterfly frame. The pieces are fairly small. I'm using an embellishment wand to help pick them up. For the other butterfly that's already assembled, I use that pink pearlescent cardstock for the outline and then the silver holographic cardstock for all those inlaid pieces. So that way there's zero waste. So one final piece. You can see how shiny these are. Now I'll flip them both over and remove the release paper from the back side. And I did cut some fairly small pieces, trying to make sure to get all of those areas. So once all the release paper has been removed, I'm adding some foam dimension just on the outside area of the wings. And I'll do the same thing to the second butterfly. Just cutting some smaller pieces for the lower portion of the wings. Remove the release paper. Then I'll add the pink butterfly in the upper left-hand corner and the holographic butterfly in the lower right-hand corner. Still try not to cover up too much of the pink flowers. For this sentiment, I've already stamped this out. This is one of the stamps that's included in the kit. There's 9 different fonts with the sentiment "with love." And I'll be adhering that in the lower left-hand corner. I cut a fishtail on the right-hand side, and I am adding some scrap cardstock on the right side where it goes off of that blue frame. I'll adhere it in place using some liquid adhesive, trying to make sure to get it nice and straight. Next, I'll add a few of the mini heart peel-offs. I believe this is the soft peach, or it might just be called peach color. Put 2 of them to the left of the sentiment. And I'll also add a few of the gold gem stickers that are included in the kit. So there is my finished card. I love how this one turned out. It's one of my favorites. For card number 2, I'm using a card sketch for inspiration. This is Sketch Saturday number 692. If you are interested in any of the sketches I use in this video, I do share all of that information on my coordinating blog post. That link is in the description box below, or you can simply head over to KristieMarcotte.com. The kit includes some 12 by 12 paper sheets that have been cut down. One side has image or sentiment cut-aparts, and the other has pattern paper. I love this rust-colored design. It looks like tiles and has a very soft peach pink pattern all over it. So I thought this would work perfectly with this sketch. I used some soft peach cardstock for the squares, layered them on some brown cardstock, and I'll be layering this background panel on the peach and then the brown cardstock also. First, I'm adding some of the mink colored peel-offs. This is the Pinstripe style, putting them along some of those little borders in the background. So I won't be following this sketch exactly. There's the little triangle in that upper right-hand corner and then that diagonal strip. Instead, I'll be adding the peel-offs, and it has that same look as this sketch, just not exact. I wrap the ends of the peel-offs around the back, put some ATG tape on the back of this pattern paper panel, layer it on the peach and then on the brown cardstock. All of my cards in this video are American Standard A2 size, 5.5 inches by 4.25 inches. Next, I'll start attaching those 4 squares. I'm using liquid adhesive, that way there's a little bit of wiggle room if I need to adjust them. So I'm starting with the upper left-hand square. Then I'll add one to the right. So trying to make sure they're nice and straight. And then as I add the next 2 squares, also trying to make sure that the placement is nice and even. So then I have one final square. Now for images to go inside the squares, I'll be using some stickers that are included in the kit. There are several full sheets of stickers included. I love this sheet with all the beautiful florals. I selected 4 of the smaller flowers with that similar golden tone. And for the sentiment, I'm using another sticker sheet. This has 3 different colors and lots of different sentiments, and they're itty bitty ones. I chose the word celebrate. Adhere it to some brown cardstock, and I'm just cutting out a narrow border around it. I will put some foam dimension on the right side where it goes off of that square, and then I'll add just a small scrap of cardstock as well. I laid the sentiment on my card and I'm running my finger over the top just to feel if I need to add more layers or remove more layers. I know it's my crafty OCD, but I like to keep things nice and level. If I only put foam dimension on the back side, that very left side of the sentiment would sit up just a little bit higher than the right side. So that's why sometimes I'll use cardstock and other times I'll use foam, or I'll use both. The nice thing about using the cardstock, it's little scraps that I have sitting on my desk, and they would just end up in the recycle bin if I didn't use them. To finish off the card, I added a few of the gold gem stickers that are included in the kit. Now moving on to card number 3. This card is a little different from my usual style. Some of the designs have a very vintage or shabby chic look to them. And one of the cut-aparts has this lovely flower, and I really wanted to use it. I'm layering it on some soft peach cardstock and then again on some black cardstock. I'll also be using this other cut-apart that has a bunch of writing on it. For the background, I have some black pattern paper that has letters, numbers, symbols with a little circle. I'll be layering it on a scallop rectangle die cut, and then layering that on some gold pearlescent cardstock. And the pearlescent cardstock is one of the add-on bundles you can purchase. Instead of having the scallop border and the gold pearlescent cardstock go all the way around the card, so on all 4 sides, I decided to put that rectangle down more in the corner. So you only see the scallop border in the gold on the left side and then the very top of the card. The rest of it will be flush to the edge of the card. I also attached both of the cut-aparts at an angle. And for the flower, I have it going off the edge on the right. I just flipped over the panel to trim off the extra. For a little extra interest, I'm using some of the mink peel-offs, adding them to the edge on the left and also the top of the card. Trim off the extra. And then where they meet in the corner, I'm using a craft knife, just pushing it together and mitering those 2 corners together. Then I'll just remove the extra pieces. I'll put some ATG tape on the back of this panel and adhere my card front onto a card base. You can see I did cut out a scallop circle from that gold pearlescent cardstock. I'll be using that on another card later on in the video. For a sentiment on the card, I'm adding some more of the sticker sentiment pieces. I'll be combining 2 of them. So the sentiment will be "Hi there, beautiful." And one final finishing touch, I decided to add some sparkle to this beautiful flower. I'm using a clear glitter brush from scrapbook.com. And there is my finished card. I love how this one turned out. Even though it's not my usual card style, it's still one of my favorite cards. But do let me know which card is your favorite. For card number 4, I'm using one of my favorite card sketches. I know I use it all the time. This is OWH sketch number 218. The pattern paper with all these little pink flowers is my absolute favorite. On the back side, it has this tone-on-tone blue design, and they work beautifully together. For the background of the card, I'm using some white pearlescent cardstock, and this is included in the pearlescent cardstock bundle that you can purchase as an add-on. I put the blue strip of pattern paper toward the bottom of the card, and rather than layer that piece with some cardstock, I used some silver peel-offs and just put them along the very edge. Then I'll layer this panel on some blue cardstock, and this blue cardstock is included in the kit, and it matches perfectly with the pattern paper. Before adhering this floral panel, I will put some scrap cardstock just on the very top portion. And I'm using that inside piece from, I believe it was the first card, that little scallop design. I'll adhere this to the card using some liquid adhesive. I've already stamped out the sentiment. This is another With Love font that's included in the kit. I'll cut the fishtail on the left side, layer the sentiment on the same blue cardstock. Cut another fishtail. Before adhering it to the card, I will put that scrap cardstock piece on the very left side where it goes off of that floral rectangle. And I'll put liquid adhesive on the back and adhere it to the card. Now on this sketch, it always has that sentiment banner going lower than this image rectangle. I always adhere it a little bit higher. For those 3 small circles, I'm using some mini heart peel-offs in the pink color. So it's very simple, and I do follow this sketch fairly closely, but I love how it turns out. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 4. For card number 5, I'm using a sketch from Sugar Pea Designs. This is Sugar Sketch number 38. I'm using white cardstock for the background, and I'll be adding a panel of this light yellow cardstock. But first, for the very outside edge, instead of having that white cardstock, I'm using some of the washi tape that's included in the kit. This has a beautiful gold foil flower design. So I'm putting one strip along the very outside edge of that cardstock, wrapping the ends around the back. That way you won't have to worry about the washi tape peeling off. Next, I'll add that yellow cardstock down the center. And then for some extra contrast, I'm using some black peel-offs. This is the pinstripe style, using the narrowest width and just putting them along that light yellow cardstock. I like to cut the ends a little bit longer so I can wrap them around the back. I did find that the peel-offs do not stick to that washi tape very well. But once I have some ATG tape on top of those, they're not going to come off later. I'll layer this panel on some of the gold pearlescent cardstock and then again on the black cardstock. That way it has some really nice contrast. Put my card front onto a card base. And I won't be following this sketch exactly. I'm really using it more for inspiration. Instead of those 3 narrow strips at the bottom of the card, I'll be adding this lovely sticker. There's one sheet of stickers that's all black, and I think they look so pretty. So I have a little flower and then it has a bunch of little leaves, and it goes all the way to the edge of the card, and I thought that looked beautiful on this card. I'm also adding a wreath. I'll put 2 of the butterflies. I'm just trying to decide what I want to put where. And then inside the wreath, I decided to add a sentiment. So there aren't any sentiments on this sheet, but on one of the other sheets, there's some sentiments. So From the Heart fits perfectly inside this wreath. It's always nice to have some cards on hand that don't have any thick dimension, so I decided to keep this one nice and flat. So there is my finished card, and I really like how it turned out. For card number 6, I'm using a sketch from Freshly Made Sketches. This is number 523. For the background, I'm using some more of the Pearlescent cardstock, and I'll be layering everything on a dark green cardstock. I have 2 different pattern papers, and they're the front and back side. So one has the little woodland creatures, and the back side has this wood grain pattern. At the very bottom of my card front, I'll be adding some of the peel-offs, and these are the peel-offs that are included in the kit. It's racing green mirror, and it has gold foil edging, so it's super shiny. I'll put 2 of them at the very bottom of the panel, using the widest and the medium width. So then I'll layer this panel on the dark green cardstock, put some ATG tape on the back, and add my card front onto a card base. And for this card, I am leaving that 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. Most of my cardstock layers, I add an additional 1/8 of an inch to the measurements listed on the sketch. Now I am changing this sketch just a little bit. Instead of having that woodland pattern paper toward the right side as indicated on the sketch, I'm shifting it to the left. And I have 3 small white circle die cuts. And I'm also not having those go off of that panel as much, just a very small edge. I know it's sad, I did cover up that one sweet little squirrel. But I will be adding some more squirrels, so I'm using some of the stickers. There is one sheet of stickers that has rows of similar images. So I have 3 of these really sweet little squirrels. I'll be using the With Love sentiment. I've already stamped this out. Cut a fishtail on the right side. Before adhering it to the card, I will put some foam dimension on the right side. I'll also be layering this on that same green cardstock. I didn't want to cover up the deer and the bunny, so I am placing it between the 2 critters. For the very right end of the sentiment, I'm using some thicker foam dimension. Then I have some thin foam dimension to put next to that. And I'll also add a cardstock layer to the very left side of that sentiment. Put some liquid adhesive on the back and adhere it to the card. And to finish off the card, I'll use some more of the gold bling that's included in the kit. I put 2 in the upper left-hand corner and 1 underneath the sentiment on the right side. I love the size of the bling. It's not really big and the color matches beautifully. So there is my finished card, and this is card number 6. For card number 7, I'm using another favorite sketch. This is from MFT. It's number 416. I've already gone ahead and stamped out the sentiment with love. I'm using this beautiful pink pattern paper. On the opposite side, there's a bunch of vintage cameras. So I'll layer all of these pieces on some dark green cardstock. The very background, I'm using some white pearlescent cardstock. Then I'll also layer the very background on some black cardstock. I love using 2 different colors for those matted layers in the background. Overall, this is a fairly simple card, and I am following this sketch closely. The pattern papers in the kit have a wide variety of different styles, and I found that the front and back are the 2 that coordinate the best. So that's why for this card I have the pink for the main background, and then I'll be adding this little camera image, which is on the opposite side. I'll fussy cut out one of the cameras, and it has a lovely teal in the background around the cameras. So I am leaving just a narrow border of that. I'll put some foam dimension on the back of the camera to pop it up and adhere it to the card in place of the little heart that's indicated on the card sketch. I'll also be adding a small banner in the upper left-hand corner, and I'm just cutting my own. You can definitely use a die if that's easier. I'll adhere that using some liquid adhesive. And for a little extra sparkle on the card, I decided to use some of the mini circle peel-offs from Love From Lizi. These are the silver holographic color and they're super sparkly. I'm adding the smallest size circle to the center of some of those little flowers in the background. I find it very helpful to pick up those tiny little circles using some reverse tweezers. So there is my finished card. I love how this one turned out. Pink and cameras are a great combination in my opinion. Now moving on to card number 8. I'm using a card sketch from Sketch Saturday. This is number 661. So again, I'm using one of the sheets of pattern paper, both sides. So it has this beautiful floral pattern on one side and blue and white stripes on the other. This scallop border die is from Pretty Pink Posh. So I just taped that die to the paper, ran it through my die cut machine. I'll put some ATG tape on the back of this piece and layer it on some black cardstock. At the very edge where that scallop border is, it also has that stitch detail. I did put a little bit of liquid adhesive. Just want to make sure it lays down nicely. I'll put my card front onto a card base, leaving that 1/8 of an inch of the white card base showing. For the small rectangle, I used some of the light pink pearlescent cardstock. Already stamped out the sentiment with love. I'm cutting a fishtail on both ends and I'll be layering this on some black cardstock. After I attach the sentiment to the black cardstock, I'll use my scissors and cut the fishtail. I'm leaving about an 1/8 of an inch border around the sentiment with that black cardstock. Before adhering the sentiment to the card, I will add some scrap cardstock pieces to the very outside edge of the sentiment where it goes off of that pink pearlescent cardstock. The pearlescent cardstock is fairly thick and my black cardstock is fairly thin, so I did cut 2 small pieces for both sides. Just glue those down using some liquid adhesive. Then I decided I wanted to pop up the sentiment using some foam dimension. Remove the release paper and adhere it to the card. Now underneath the sentiment, I'll be adding one of the wood pieces that's included in the kit. There are 5 different pieces included and I decided to go with this flourish heart. Instead of keeping it that plain wood color, I used some Catherine Pooler ink. This is the sea glass color, and just pressed the one side of the wood into the ink. While the ink is still wet, I'm using some Glossy Clear embossing powder from Love From Lizi. Just sprinkle it all over the one side. Then I'll use my heat tool to set that. Now it'll have a lovely glossy finish and I don't have to worry if that ink doesn't dry completely. To adhere it to the card, I'm using the multi-medium matte adhesive. Just putting a light coating on the back side and I'll attach it underneath the sentiment. For a little extra shine, I decided to pull out the peel-offs that are included in the kit. I'm using the narrowest width and putting it right along that scallop border toward the bottom of the card. Where they meet in the center, I'll be using my craft knife and mitering those corners together. And at the very edge, I just trim it off so it's flush with the pattern paper. This is an easy way to add that little bit of shine to a card. And I put it right to the edge of that stitch border. I didn't want to cover that up. One final finishing touch, I'll use some of the sequins that are included in the kit. Just the gold color. There's lots of beautiful colors, but I decided just to go with the gold. I'm putting 2 in the upper left-hand corner and 1 underneath the sentiment on the right side. Using my embellishment wand to pick those up, adding a small drop of liquid adhesive, and then using the opposite end of my embellishment wand to press them onto the card. And there is my finished card. This is another favorite. That floral pattern paper is just beautiful. Now moving on to card number 9. I'm using a sketch from MFT. This is number 391. This sketch was designed to work with one of their cover-up dies, but I decided to use it without that die. I still had a little bit of this pink floral paper and I didn't want to waste it. So I cut that paper down into 1-inch squares. I'm using some pink cardstock for the background and I did use a stitched rectangle die. layer it on some blue cardstock, and both the pink and the blue cardstock are included in the kit. Then for that longer strip, I use some soft peach cardstock. I'm just laying all of the pieces out on my card, trying to get the placement nice and even. And I'll start gluing down each of the pieces. So starting with the lower left-hand corner. Once I get the 3 squares across the card, it's much easier to place the other pieces and get that grid nice and even. I like using liquid adhesive since there's that little bit of wiggle room before the adhesive adheres. So just 2 final squares. Then for that narrow strip that goes across the card, I'm using the same dark blue cardstock. I'll cut some small scrap pieces where it goes off of the edge. Just glue those down. I'll put liquid adhesive on the back of this piece and adhere it to the card. And I am following this sketch fairly closely. I'm just making those squares a little bit smaller. I think on the die those squares are closer to 1 1/8 inch instead of the 1 inch. For this sentiment on the card, I'm using some more of the stickers. This is Hello Lovely. And I also wanted to use one of the metal charms that's included in the kit. This is a little gold bow. I'll attach the sentiment stickers down first, and then the bow I'll adhere to the left side of the sentiment. Put some liquid adhesive on the back of this little metal bow and attach it. And I felt that everything looked a little off balance, which I will fix here later on. Decided to add some gold glitter peel-offs above the sentiment and that little bow using, I think this is the narrowest width. I'll just put 2 strips and use my craft knife to trim off the end. Then I'll also add 1 strip next to the sentiment. I'll flip over the panel to trim off the extra. Then when I was photographing the card, I realized I should have put some more of the peel off to the left of that little bow, and I do that, so you'll see it here in the photograph. Off screen, I also added a couple of the gem stickers in the upper right-hand corner. For card number 10, I have this fun pattern paper that has different widths of pink stripes in the background. I'll layer this on some pink cardstock that's included in the kit, and then again on some black cardstock. Put my card front onto a card base. Trying to decide if I wanted the wider stripe more toward the right side or the left side. I'm using the add-on stamp set. This is Botanical Bliss. It has a double frame. In the kit, the stamp set has a very similar image, but it has the single line frame. I thought I'd go with the double line frame. On the add-on set, there's also several different leafy branch stamps. So I'm using one of them and Catherine Pooler's Sea Glass ink color. Stamped it right above that little frame. The sentiments are designed to fit inside this little frame box, so that's really fun. I selected one of the With Love sentiments, and I'll be using another Catherine Pooler ink. This time it's a girl, and I did stamp it first. I want to make sure to get a nice good impression, and this pink matches beautifully with the pink cardstock in the kit. Then I'll fussy cut out this little sentiment box, leaving just that little bit of the white border along the outside edge. And I did speed up this portion quite a bit. I don't really cut this fast. So once I have that all cut out, I'll also be adding a stitched heart die cut using the same pink cardstock that's included in the kit. I'll glue down the heart using some liquid adhesive, putting it slightly at an angle. And I'll put some foam dimension on the back of this sentiment box. Remove the release paper and adhere it more on the right side of the heart. Then to finish off the card, I'll be adding some peel-offs. I thought I'd first try putting a little flower on the left side of the heart, but I didn't like the look. So I'm even trying one of the smaller flowers and even smaller, but instead I'll be going with some peel-offs. These are the pink clear iridescent peel-offs in the mini circle. I'm putting 2 of them on the left side of the circle. Then I'll add the smallest size underneath the sentiment toward the right. And I'll also be using some of the mini hearts in silver. I'll put 2 of the smallest size above the word love. And there is my finished card. I love all that pretty pink. Now I decided to make one more card, so I have a bonus card for you. This is a very simple card. I love this pear paper, so I really wanted to use it. I'll round the bottom 2 corners using my corner chomper. I have it set at the 1/2 inch size. I'll be adding 2 of the peel-offs that are included in the kit, putting them at the very top of this pattern paper. I have the medium width and also the narrowest width. Just wrap those ends around the back. Layer this piece on some dark green cardstock. I did need to trim down the very top of the card. I noticed it was a little wider than the rest of the green cardstock layer. I'll put some ATG tape on the back of this panel and adhere it to my card base. And I've already rounded the corners on the card base. So here is that scallop gold circle that I cut out from the background on a previous card, and I didn't want it to go to waste. So I'll be adding it to this card. I did trim the very right side so it'll be flush to the edge. Just glue it down using some liquid adhesive. Then I'll attach one of the sentiment stickers. This is Love You. And to finish off the card, I'll use some more of the gold bling that's included in the kit. Put 3 of them in the lower left-hand corner and 2 around the sentiment. Super easy card. I really didn't want to cover up most of that beautiful pattern paper. With some of the larger designs on the pattern paper in the kit, you really just need to add a sentiment and maybe a little bit of bling and your card is finished. Now here's another look at the 11 cards I made using Love From Lizi's March 2022 card kit. The theme is From the Heart. As I'm recording this voiceover, the kit and most of the add-ons are still available, and I will have links provided in the description box below. This is a monthly kit, so quantities are always limited. The only way to guarantee receiving a kit is to sign up and subscribe. And I do have links for subscribing provided in the description box as well. Now here's everything I have left over after making the 11 cards. Just a little bit of the cardstock. I have 1 full sheet of the 6x6 pattern paper and some scraps. Still have a little bit of the 12x12 paper. I ended up not using one of the sheets. Lots and lots of the stickers, since you do get quite a few sheets. I think there's 8 full sheets. I still have the stamp set, and you can see all those different with love sentiments. I have most of the washi tape. Still have the bag of sequins, lots of the gold gem stickers, and there are 4 more of the wood pieces. I only used 1 of those, and 3 of the metal charms, and then here are the dies. I ended up only using the butterfly this time. But I think these dies will be fun to use in future kits, as that very spring summer feel. And then the final item is the sheet of peel-offs. So still quite a few things left over. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a wonderful day.